£3,000 each month for an entire year. Extra cash in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Take a year off and keep it to yourself. You don't even need to tell the taxman, as it's totally tax-free. For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB08, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight.
Who's your inspiration? Is Donald Trump giving any advice?
I did speak to him on Monday after the second assassination attempt. He always encourages me.
What's his key bit of advice for you?
That'd be me.
I've got the full Nigel Farage interview coming your way in just seconds, including that astonishing advice that Donald Trump has given him. And now Angela Rayner refuses to reveal the full details of donations that she's received, and
those not in receipt of pension credit or certain other means-tested benefits will no longer receive the winter fuel payment from this year onwards.
Now it's emerged Labour did do an impact assessment on the winter fuel payments cut, but they are refusing to reveal what's in it. And
our solution is a new brand that strikes out hate, replacing it with a simple bar of hope, reducing the visual power of the word hate.
It also turns out that a Labour whip and other MPs are members of a hardcore left-wing campaign group called Hope Not Hate. Should this be allowed? Also, well, you lucky people, I'm going to be taking you live to Reform's conference after party, where quite literally anything could be going on. And
England in particular, in recent decades, our identity has started to fray.
Why are patriotic English people always accused of being racist? It's time to hit back. On my panel tonight is political consultant Suzanne Evans, columnist Patrick O'Flynn and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Torbett.
Hello.
Oh yes, and I forgot to mention, a school is allowing a child to live as a wolf. I shine a light on that latest trend. of being trans species. And this is a bit sickening as well, isn't it?
Hello, President Paris.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, whoopsie, silly me. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. We've got a full interview with Nigel Farage next.
Good evening, I'm Mark White. The latest headlines from the GB News Centre. The Prime Minister will no longer accept donations for clothing after the row over gifts. Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner have also announced they will take the same approach. The move comes as Labour seeks to move on from the widespread condemnation of the Prime Minister and his wife's acceptance of gifts, including clothing, from prominent Labour donor and peer Lord Ali. Sir Keir has accepted around £39,000 from Lord Ali since December 2019. The Hezbollah terror group has suffered another major blow after one of its most senior commanders was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Ibrahim Akil is reported to have died when warplanes struck the buildings he was in earlier today in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Security sources said he was killed alongside 10 other senior members of an elite Hezbollah unit as they were holding a meeting. Throughout the day, more than 140 rockets were fired by Hezbollah fighters into northern Israel. The barrage started a number of fires when some rockets landed in open areas of the Israeli countryside, but there are no reported injuries. GB News has learned that Donald Trump has given Nigel Farage some key advice as the Reform leader bids to improve his party's chances at the next election. Mr Farage was speaking to our political editor, Christopher Hope, after his keynote speech at the party's annual conference in Birmingham. The Reform leader had spoken to Donald Trump in the days after a second assassination attempt on the former president and received a bit of political advice.
Your inspiration, is Donald Trump giving any advice?
I did speak to him on Monday after the second assassination attempt. He always encourages me.
What's his key bit of advice for you?
Be me.
One of Mohammed Al-Fayed's alleged victims has said the billionaire businessman was highly manipulative. A survivors' news conference heard the former Harrods owner described as a monster enabled by a system that pervaded the business. One lawyer said the case combined some of the worst, horrific elements of the Jimmy Savile, Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein abuse scandals. And finally, thousands have gathered in the Netherlands to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Allied operation to take the bridge at Arnhem. British, Dutch and Polish paratroopers marched this evening to honour the forces who fought a week-long bloody battle to try to capture the bridge. But almost 2,000 Allied and Commonwealth troops were killed in the ultimately futile effort which inspired the movie A Bridge Too Far. And you're right up to date with the latest headlines. Time to crack open the wine. Not me, you, as I hand you back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
OK, welcome along to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, normally, as regular viewers and listeners will know, I like to start the hour with a barnstorming, tub-thumping monologue about something that you all deeply care about. But tonight, I decided that can wait until the 10 p.m. hour, because there's been something else that you all care deeply about that's taking place today. It is the Reform Party conference, led, of course, by the rabble-rouser-in-chief, Nigel Farage, who also delivered a, well, it was quite a scintillating speech, I think, today. Lee Anderson also did, Anne Widdecombe did. Richard Tice, I think, spoke at one point as well, so it was all going on. Well, our political editor, Christopher Hope, managed to finally get Nigel Farage to just sit still in one place for a little bit, and he cornered him for 5 minutes and asked him a whole host of questions, and we have very gratefully been able to get that turned around for the start of this show. So that's quite enough for me from now. It is time for me to throw you over to the main men, our political editor Christopher Hope and the one and only Nigel Farage.
Farage, the biggest cheer that happened in your speech there was at the end when you said you don't care about skin colour, orientation, we care if you share the values of this country, we judge you as a person. Why do you have to say that?
Because we're sick to death of being divided up. We're sick to death of our kids at school at young ages, if they're white, being told they're oppressors, if they're black, being told they're victims. This whole division in society, the equality, diversity and inclusion agenda, which now discriminates against majority groups in workplaces or joining the Royal Air Force or whatever it may be. We hate that. We don't believe they're consistent with British values in any way at all. And the reason I got the biggest cheer for that is you can see what a thoroughly decent, open group of people these are.
Do you worry that that language might be seized on? You mentioned skin colour and orientation by people who think that you'll say you're not, but a far-right party, a racist party.
I'm sorry, you've just contradicted yourself in the most extraordinary way. If that got the biggest cheer, how on earth can we be far-right? How on earth can we be far-right?
Earlier, Lee Anderson talked about feeling like our culture, get out. What culture does he mean? Is that a white culture? Or what
culture? I mean, and Middleton talked a lot about this. You know, it's about our history that shaped us in the way that it has. And whilst it may not be perfect, it's something we're proud of. It's about the democracy that we've built. It's about the universal values that we share. It's about understanding that it is the Judeo-Christian culture that underpins everything that we stand for. It's not difficult, this.
Critics see it, though, as being excluding groups, but it's not in your world.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite. No. It's the DEI culture that excludes various groups and says, oh, you must employ this person over that person because they're X, Y, or Z. We're against all of that.
You said the sky's the limit. Zia Yusuf, who's your chairman, he's told us on GB News that you can win 2 terms. Not 1 term, 2 terms in the 2030s.
He does run away of it, doesn't he?
Is this even possible? But from where you were a colleague at GB News before the election, you thought you'd go back into Reform UK, you won 5 seats. I mean, can you really win 321 seats to give you the majority in the House of Commons you need?
I've never lived through a moment in my life where absolute disappointment and dissolution with the 2 parties. People are uninspired in every way. They vote for one because they can't stand the other and vice versa. I mean, even this massive Labour majority hasn't come with any love. So if ever there was a moment when something big and historic was going to happen, it's now. Now look, is it probable? No. But you asked me a different question. Is it possible? Anything's possible.
What are the odds then? You're a betting man.
8 to 1 at the moment.
And you put money on 8 to 1.
Well, that's what the bookies say. That's what the bookies say.
But can you really be a PM? I mean, have you got all the qualities you need to do it? I mean, you've run, I suppose.
Well, no, I haven't really. I've not been to Oxford. I've run a private business. I have a sense of humour. I'm probably disqualified. But look, Chris, point is, in the next 5 years, it's probable that somebody younger and better looking than me will come along. And if that's...
So it may not be you taking the next election.
No, but if I can help propel us in that direction, and if nobody does come along that's better, then I'll have a go.
And your new constitution means that members can vote out if they're like...
Well, the new constitution fundamentally changes the shape of the party. It was set up as a company that I owned. I did it and I explained to the audience why, to stop us being taken over by malign actors. I mean, and believe you me, the far right, genuine far right, would have come and tried to take it over. And now's the time this party's come of age to give it to the members.
How do you do it without data? At this party, this hall is on a sugar rush of that excitement from July, no question. But how do you get past that? You won with a divided, exhausted Tory party against you. They will be organised, they'll be organised in 2028, 2029. How do you beat them?
By organising. I mean, what is this conference is all about saying to them, I made it very clear in my talk, we will succeed and fail, not on what I do, on what you do. There's only so much you can do with air war. You can put out big national messages, you can talk to you can do social media, you can do all those things, but ultimately, it is on the door that it really matters. And the Lib Dems have proved that, I think quite remarkably.
So the staging posts towards you becoming Prime Minister are what? how many seats winning next May at the local election?
We'd need to win several hundred seats next May. We really would.
And then the Welsh Assembly election?
Go into Wales, Scotland and all the rest of it.
Again, dozens in each of those seats?
We'd need to... Well, I think dozens in Scotland at this stage would be a bit bullish.
It takes time. It took time for you to win the Brexit battle, didn't it? It will take time, this, perhaps more than...
Do you know, the Brexit battle was harder than this is going to be. This is about the desire for something different, a feeling that we've failed, that the country's not working, and yet, despite thinking those things, look at the optimism of our people. They genuinely think something can happen.
And just finally, who's your inspiration? Is Donald Trump giving any advice?
I did speak to him on Monday after the second
of course,
assassination attempt. He always encourages me.
What's his key bit of advice for you?
Be me.
Be you. Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Thank you.
OK, so that was our political editor, Christopher Hope, there, with Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. I'm going to bring my panel into this now. Susanna, I'll start with you. One of the first things there was about diversity, inclusion, etc., followed by another question, which was something Lee Anderson had raised at the conference here, which is, and I'm paraphrasing here, which is essentially, if you don't like Britain, you know where the airport is. Is that fair enough, do you think?
Well, you know, one of the things that Nigel Farage has always said, one of his mantras is, we want our country back. And that is a line that's peppered through his speeches for as long as I've known him. And this is also a phrase that I hear very often when people are talking. They say, we do want our country back. They recognise that Britain has changed. You know, we had Labour since 1997, which deliberately allowed mass uncontrolled immigration. They said at the time to rub the nose of the right in diversity. They wanted to change the way our country looked. He also mentioned equality, diversion and inclusion. Now, in my view, when I was at school, say many, many years ago, I didn't feel that our country was racist in any shape or form. I think you know, things have definitely changed from the 50s and 60s when you first had new immigrants. But since diversity, equality, inclusion has come in, he's absolutely right in what he said. Everybody's become much more divided. Everyone's wandering around, around on eggshells, frightened of upsetting anybody, frightened of saying something wrong. So he's right about that. And the face of the country has changed. There's no doubt about that.
Patrick,
and it makes it much less cohesive.
You cracking town. You look like a man who definitely does know where the airport is. But you've decided to come back, so that's great. Do you think it's fair enough to just say, basically, look, if you don't like it here, stop trying to subvert British culture. You can leave if you want. Otherwise, just get on board with it.
I think that's a perfectly fair thing to say, but it's not really a policy, is it? So Lee Anderson has got a bit of a talent for saying these things, and he did when he was in the Tories. But the challenge for Reform is to come up with some considered policies which could, you know, are they going to deport people who came illegally or people who came and then committed certain criminal offences? What's the plan to do that? What is the immigration policy looking ahead? But I think it's a very hot-button issue at the moment. That every single identity group is encouraged to wallow in victimhood, to try and get one over the others, apart from white working class people, right? And they're not allowed to say, well, actually, you know, our teenage daughters are running the gauntlet here, or working class boys are not getting into university. That's an invisible issue, particularly, I think, under this sort of North London Labour government. And, you know, Robert Jenrick's got a sense of this in his head, hasn't he? But Nigel Farage, Lee Anderson kind of own the anti-woke thing, and they're wise not to let it go.
OK, Matthew, I'll bring you in on that. Do you think that there's some truth to that? That what Nigel Farage is saying there is owning the anti-woke thing, and him and Robert Jenrick talking both really about being proud to be English. The other thing I thought I saw you shaking your head a bit at during that VT there was about this notion that he could win in 2029. So do you find that ridiculous?
No, basically, he was talking, the bit I was shaking my head at is he thinks that somebody younger and fresher may end up coming along before him. And I think because of Nigel's charisma, whatever people think of him, the party will die a death when he's finished. I don't see anybody at the moment that can fill that vacuum that he would leave, and it'd be a big vacuum.
Yeah, no, fair enough. On the actual substance of some of the things that he was saying then, when it comes to, you know, people being taught that they're a victim or anything along those lines, do you think that he's talking people's language there? Should the Labour Party be fearful of him saying things like that?
I think the party should be fearful of Nigel, and if they're not, you know, they're daft to consider him as not a threat. I mean, I went to school, you know, a little bit more recently than Susanna. I never got told who was victims and who weren't, or whether people were racist, or told about how awful the country was. I'm proud to be British. I see the world in a very different way from Nigel, but I've never seen the almost myths that seem to perpetuate much of public life that we're dividing people. And actually, Nigel's divided a lot of the country in his own way as well. So it's a bit of reap what you sow at times.
Do you think that Nigel could go and be Prime Minister in 2029? I mean, that was probably the other really big line that came out of it today, I think, which was that they are saying openly, we are preparing for victory at the next general election.
OK, number one rule of politics, never admit that you might not win. That's absolutely something you're not allowed to do in politics. So personally, I think being Prime Minister in 4 or 5 years' time is a little bit ambitious, but I would love to see Nigel Farage as the leader of the opposition then at the dispatch box, because he would be absolutely brilliant. And then I think he'd certainly have a chance at the next election after that if he still wants to do it, if he says someone younger and prettier hasn't come along or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think they've got to be so careful, though. Reform has still got a long way to be professional. When I joined UKIP in 2013, I was really quite shocked, having been in the Conservative Party, just how so far away that party was from being anything like remotely professional. And in a sense, Reform is the continuation of that legacy. So I really, really want Reform to do well. And my message is, please don't mess it up, because the country needs you.
He made a big point during his speech today of saying that one of the big things that they're going to do from now on is absolutely vet every single candidate. You can tell that for Nigel, the worst case scenario would be standing at local elections or the next general election or whatever, and it turns out that some absolute complete and utter nut job with a track record of goodness knows what has managed to wander his way or her way into the party. And so there is this desire now to try to professionalise it, isn't there? And there was a rallying call for everyone in that hall, which did look incredibly full, I must say, to try to play their part themselves. So do you think he might be successful in that, or is he always going to succumb to the odd nutter?
Well, I think there'll always be the odd so-called nutter, and in fact, most of the parties have them. But Nigel parties tend to get more scrutiny because it's a way for both the left and the right to try and keep him down. I actually think the public, despite Reform's problems with selecting so many candidates so quickly at the election, I think the public is kind of in the share price a bit, and the idea that Nigel is an extremist, I think he showed with Brexit he actually was in line with the majority of the country, and I think personally that's faded away a bit.
He's got the charisma, he's got things that frankly Keir Starmer doesn't have. Just very, very quickly, Matthew, one of the things for you as well is Anne Widdecombe was up there. She was talking about when Labour have released all these prisoners out to the streets, some of whom miraculously have managed to find their way back into prison in the last week or so. But what she thinks should have happened was that we'd turned holiday camps into secure prison-like units, as almost like halfway houses. It's things like that I know might sound a bit silly, but I think that would resonate quite well on the doorstep if they actually did them. Is it that kind of policy thing that Labour's missing out on?
If anybody that's ever stayed at Butlins thinks it's maybe a prison camp anyway, you know, so it wouldn't make much of a difference. Sorry to Butlins. No, I think...
All prisons, I suppose.
Well, quite, yeah. No, I think people may like that. We have a country that believes in being very tough on crime. And actually, New Labour did that. They were in talks about opening up ships to put overspills of prisons on, which I wouldn't, think is a good idea. But there's a narrative there, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But, certainly the way things are going for Keir Starmer, and we're going to be talking about that later on. Still to come. Thanks to your generosity, yes, my fundraiser for Friends of the Elderly now has just under £170,000 in it. But I'm not the only one who is worried about pensioners. The Daily Express is also on the warpath. They want the government to reverse their decision to cut winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. I'm going to be speaking to the journalist behind that crusade. She's got some really, really, really heart-wrenching first-hand accounts. Some people who have been writing to her. And also, if you do want to donate, it's justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. Our target is 260 grand, so we've still got a way to go. But up next, a schoolboy has been allowed to identify as a wolf with teachers at his secondary school, and they support his decision. I mean, is this ridiculous? Now have woke diversity and inclusion policies gone too far? The media commentator Paul London is one half of a fabulous head-to-head with Amy Ansell, and that's next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
When I knew that I was doing this segment this week, I feel like this week was a real homework task for me because I'll be honest, I haven't been around Scottish food much in my life, but I obviously know all the obvious. And I thought I'd bring in a selection of some of, I guess, the sort of the quintessential culinary delights of the North. I mean, we have in front of us haggis.
I think we should begin with some haggis.
So, Michael, I've never eaten haggis before. This is going to be the first time.
Well, have you eaten anything like haggis before? Have you eaten anything that is made from the intestines of an animal?
I mean, I've had things like chopped liver and, you know, a bit of offal here and there.
Well, there we are. I mean, I got a great surprise. I was holding a great... When I was in government, I was holding a great party in Scotland, and I had a lot of Spanish visitors, and I was offering them haggis, and I thought that they would be astonished by haggis and maybe repelled. But when they ate it, they said, oh, no, this is morcilla. So, you know, there is an equivalent in Spain.
Absolutely.
So if I recall, and you've probably been mugging it up, which I have not, but haggis is made within the stomach of a sheep.
Yes.
And you take the heart and the lungs and some other part of the sheep and you mash it up.
With onions, oatmeal, suet.
Yes.
And it's stuffed into the sheep's stomach. But a lot of the haggis you get these days, especially sort of the slightly cheaper varieties in supermarkets, it's usually an artificial casing. Oh. You know what? This is actually quite nice.
I think it's absolutely heavenly. And
it's very savoury.
To me, it's two things. Yes, to me, it's two things. It's both the taste and the texture. You quite rightly refer to the oatmeal going in there. So it's got this crunchy, granular sort of texture. Marvellous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the truth, available at gbnews.com.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Would you let your child live as a wolf? It's time now for our head-to-head. That's right, a British schoolboy has reportedly been allowed to identify as a wolf. Now, bear with me here. The schoolboy is allegedly suffering from species dysphoria, which is when someone claims their body belongs to a different species. Teachers at the boys' secondary school are said to be supporting him. It comes after a school in Aberdeen was forced last year to deny claims that pupils were identifying as cats and have been given litter trays to use in the toilets. So tonight I'm asking, have woke diversity and inclusion policies gone too far? Going head-to-head on this are the media commentator Paula London and the presenter and commentator Amy Ansell. Both of you, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show tonight. Paula, I'll start with you. Should schools be allowing children to identify as wolves?
Definitely not. And firstly, there's no such thing as species dysphoria. So I don't know how he can identify as something that doesn't exist. And the teachers should definitely not be pandering to him. I think the problem starts at home, though. He needs to have a very strong talking to by his parents or caregivers. And I don't understand why they're pandering to him at school. I think it's very eerie. I think he definitely needs to see a child psychiatrist as well. And perhaps he should be eating vermin or eating snakes, because that's what wolves do. I mean, how far is he taking it? Is he not using bathrooms for human beings? I don't know what's going on, but if I was like running the school, I'd actually suspend him, because other vulnerable children in his class could act up because he is in the vicinity daily and trying to put crazy stories into their heads.
Yeah, Amy, I mean, why are we pandering to this weird stuff?
No, I agree. I actually am on the same side as Paul, strangely. I mean, I think it's really important to support children and the way they want to express themselves, their creativity, their passions, their loves, their interests. But when it comes to identifying as an animal, I mean, you're opening a can of worms. And an animal and a species dysphoria, which isn't even a medical or a clinical condition, and to have to accept something like that in a school, I think it's going to be really disruptive. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to go see the vet and not the nurse? Is there even a vet in the school if they feel unwell? I mean, what are they going to eat? I mean, is there a howling part in the chorus? Like, what? I don't understand how they're going to integrate into a school with children.
Well, they're probably not, are they? They might get on better at the zoo or, I don't know, in the woods or something. But, Paul, I suppose some people would say, well, look, you know, we are a modern world. We have to be sympathetic towards children now, and we can't beat it out of him, can we? So we're going to have to just let him howl at the moon.
I don't think we need to be sympathetic. I just think he needs a strong talking to by his parents. And I do believe maybe he should have inpatient mental health treatment. And if you think about it, when we're pandering to all of these children, it's all started in America. What happens in America diffuses to the United Kingdom. In the end, what's going to happen is like children in China and in Japan, they're going to be way ahead of our children when they're trying to get jobs, because we've had all this woke ideology pushed on them. And we've had a lot of schools just bending over backwards, and they care more about the wokeness than they do a regular curriculum. So I believe in being strict. My parents were strict and my school teachers were strict. You know, I had children in my class, I was in a girls' school, that were tomboys. These days, teachers would be saying, oh, are you sure you're not trans? Are you sure you're not non-binary? It's ridiculous. You go to school to learn.
That's a good point. And, Amy, I do wonder how you feel about this. You know, if we've got schools now that are absolutely 100% ready and willing to accept that someone turns up and they are a wolf, or they're having to deny the idea that they've got some children there, not just claiming to be cats. One of them, genuinely, at this other school, said they wanted to identify as the moon. Right, so it's not even living, breathing things anymore. It's just stuff. I mean, they surely would also, Amy, be more than willing to affirm somebody's change in gender, and that's a problem for kids, Amy. Surely.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you have to live within society, and if you're going to claim you're the moon, you're the wolf, you're the cat, you have to live your whole life like that, and you can't do that living in society, going to school. It's just unacceptable. And it's really not, it's going to be very disruptive. They won't be able to integrate into society as those things.
OK, all right. I mean, I just think that maybe we should be knocking some heads together over this, really, and wondering how on earth we've ended up in a situation. You know, I think the parents need to be having a serious talking to, as well as anybody at the schools. Well, both of you, thank you very, very much. There was Paula London there, and the presenter and commentator, Amy Ansell. Great to see you both. Coming up, Reform UK did kick off their conference in Birmingham today, and all eyes were on this man. OK, so he's claimed that he'll be Prime Minister by 2029. I am actually going to talk to Reform UK MP James McMurdoch, but we have a little treat for you. I'm going to be taking you live to Birmingham for the very latest from the conference hall, OK? So this is the kind of after-hours party where, frankly, anything could be happening. I'm also going to be talking to you a bit about the latest expenses scandal that is engulfing the Labour Party. It's some stuff that's landed in just the last couple of hours, so stay tuned for that. Oh, yeah, but first, sorry, thanks to your donations, my fundraiser for Friends of the Elderly has now reached more than £170,000, but I'm not the only one who's worried about pensioners. Daily Express, they are on the warpath as well, and they want the government to actually reverse their decision to cut winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. I'm going to be speaking to the journalist behind that crusade in just a few moments' time, so I will see you then.
Monday, the king of breakfast TV is back. That's right. Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow's weather patterns similar to today's. Much of the north dry. In the south, again, we need to watch out for some thunderstorms developing. We've seen a few today. Low pressure is heading up from the south. High pressure dominating to the north of Scotland, bringing, as I said, much of northern Britain a dry day today and a dry and a fine night. Having said that, the cloud is thick enough in the east for a little bit of drizzle here and there. In the south, we've seen some big downpours today. They are going to fade through this evening, but later in the night we could start to see a few more heavy showers coming in. It will be quite a mild night in the south, but with clear skies in parts of Scotland, temperatures will be well down into single digits. Again, though, western Scotland having a cracking day, if you like, September sunshine. Meanwhile, in the south, we have another thunderstorm warning. Not everywhere in this large warning area will see downpours, but where they do occur, like today, they could cause some issues. Potentially some flooding. There's going to be lots of lightning and large hailstones as well. Eastern Scotland, northeast England likely to stay fairly glum. A bit of drizzle is possible along the coast and over the hills, but generally staying dry and certainly plenty of sunshine once more in western Scotland. There will be some sunshine further south as well. The hit and miss nature of those thunderstorms, though, that's why we've got the warning in place. They could cause some disruption. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the road, so bear that in mind. Parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England, most susceptible, but some heavy showers across eastern England too. In the sunny spells, it'll feel quite warm, mid-20s possibly, 20 or 21 in western Scotland, but where it stays glum on the east coast, it will be cool, and that cloud is back again on Sunday, and the heavy showers across the south as well. We have another yellow Met Office warning in place for Sunday, covering large parts of England and Wales for wet weather. With the thunderstorms today and tomorrow, that extra rain could cause some further disruption. The warnings are available on the Met Office website.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This Monday, the king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight, and wow, now more than 6,600 of you wonderful people have donated almost £170,000 to my fundraiser for Friends of the Elderly. I mean, I would just like to say a quick thank you to Alan, who's donated 10 quid in the last few minutes. An anonymous person who's donated £100 in the last 5 minutes. Pat's given us 20 quid. Sue, that's another 10 quid in just the last 10 minutes as well. There's all of these people. It's just absolutely flooding in. Roger and Eileen have given £100 plus £25 gift aid. All of that stuff has been in the last couple of minutes. Now, you can see a QR code on your screen there. If you hold your phone over it, something magic happens and it takes you to that page. Or you can go to justgiving.com/page/. uk/save our seniors. If you can, it'd be much appreciated. All of that money goes to Friends of the Elderly, who give grants to old people in times of need, who help take them to hospital and doctor's appointments, who help get them fridges if there's breaks, or a toaster, or a bed. We heard a story yesterday of one chap who sadly didn't have a bed, so he was sleeping on the floor, and it took him months and months and months to actually call for help, because that is the kind of people that generation are. Well, your money could go to helping those over the course of this winter. But a lot of them are going to be unable to heat their homes, aren't they? Because of the loss of the winter fuel payment and the rise in the energy price cap. But I'm going to keep going and do everything that I possibly can to raise as much money as I can to try to show our greatest generation that we will not turn our backs on them as a country. That challenge that I'll be doing next week, by the way, so I'm going to be doing a challenge next week, is to live off a budget of a pensioner surviving on less than the state pension. OK, so next week, Monday to Friday, I'm going to be trying to live off a food budget of £15. I'm going to be documenting it. I'm going to be doing my bit to it, just to show what some elderly people are having to try to live off. So it's a food budget, Monday to Friday, of 15 quid. But I'm also not the only person who's worried about pensioners. The Daily Express, they're on the warpath. They want the government to actually reverse their decision to cut the winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. And I'm very glad to be joined now by the journalist behind their crusade as senior political correspondent at the Daily Express. It's Steph Spiro. Steph, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. So I was just hoping you might be able to tell us a little bit about some of the stories that are coming to you from elderly people who know that they're going to be struggling without this winter fuel payment.
We've heard incredibly heartbreaking stories. Our post box at the Express is inundated with our readers who are not only frightened, but furious at Labour's decision. I think just this week we've amassed, more than 10 massive postage sacks of really angry readers. I think today's splash highlights the people at the root of this policy. We highlighted Jack Barlow's story. He's 86. He's a veteran who served on Christmas Island testing up atomic bombs. And for him, his reward for service to the nation was the winter fuel payment. And that's been snatched away from him. So he is understandably livid. There are millions of pensioners who serve their country, and they feel this is what they've now been left with. Other readers have emailed me to say that they are worried about their own lives. But even the risk of, dare I say, suicide, some people feel that this winter is going to be so unbearable that it's not even worth living through.
And that is absolutely staggering. I am glad that you've raised that issue, because the mental health amongst the elderly is something that doesn't get spoken about a lot. Often it's bracketed as loneliness, but I think sometimes that is miscategorised. Genuine out-and-out hopelessness and depression would be another way of putting it. And when you're staring down the barrel of literally having to choose between heating and eating, I heard a story yesterday about someone who had to choose between being able to pay for a taxi to their chemotherapy appointment or being able to heat their living room. I mean, that is just disgusting, a disgusting way for anyone who's paid into the system their whole lives and done their bit to have to end their days, Steph, I think.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's not just pensioners who are angry. I mean, Labour MPs themselves want Rachel Reeves to U-turn on this decision. Their inboxes are heaving with people who are feeling the very real impacts of this policy, as you said. So Labour's going to come under a lot of pressure. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon to help make a difference to the millions and millions of pensioners' lives who really, really are at risk this winter. It's dire for many, many people.
Did you realise this problem was as bad as it is? I mean, you said you've got sacks and sacks and sacks of letters. I read with great interest what was on the front page, your splash of the Daily Express today. No doubt there'll be many more to come as well. Did you realise that this was a problem that is as widespread as it is? Because the common rhetoric about pensioners at the moment, if you believe, for a lot of people, is they're all millionaires and they're sitting in £1 million houses and it's all going to be fine. But I think you've had a window into the reality, haven't you?
Exactly. And the thing is, the government's own equality assessment, which they snuck out last Friday and at like 7 p.m. at night, showed that I think 7 out of 10 disabled pensioners are set to lose their winter fuel payments. So it's not just rich people with many homes. That is a myth completely. It is people who risk going without food, turning down their heating, and elderly people need, just by the nature of their age and their vulnerability, need more heat. And I don't think we actually realized the extent of the anger of this issue when we first launched the campaign. but it is coming thick and fast, and they're showing no signs of it slowing down anytime soon. So this issue is not going away. We're going to keep championing it. And I think the pressure on Rachel Reeves and Sir Keir Starmer is definitely on.
I think you're doing a great thing there, Steph, and thank you very much for doing it. Steph Spiro there, who is the senior political correspondent at the Daily Express. Thank you very, very much. Look, if you want to give or can give anything, please go to justgiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors. Every single penny of that goes to a charity called Friends of the Elderly. They take people to and from appointments. They get them urgent things that they need around their house. They give them grants so they can pay their heating bills this winter. And next week as well, I will be trying to live all week off a food budget of £15 to try and show a bit of solidarity with what some of the pensioners are having to go through at the moment. But yes. Anyway, next, it was the first day of Reform UK conference in Birmingham today. Nigel Farage certainly made quite an entrance, didn't he? I'm going to take you live to the conference hall for all of the very latest. So there you go. We will send you to the Reform Party conference. Have a bit of that. I'll see you in a sec.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the truth, available at gbnews.com.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Angela, what have we got?
Hello, there's an awful lot, but I think the main interesting thing is that Prince Harry said a week or so, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that he absolutely wasn't going to go to his uncle's funeral because there wasn't enough protection for him. His uncle, Lord Fellows, was married to Jane Spencer, who was Diana's sister, who was the most practical and helpful of the three children, the three girls, and she's done an awful lot for Harry. I thought it was just terrible. He wasn't going to go there, but he has been there. They didn't talk to William. William didn't talk to him. Did he get any protection? Who knows? And if he didn't, if he takes the government to court yet again, they would say, well, look, we managed without that, but we don't know about that. But also the paper, the magazine that does loads for Harry and Meghan, they were the ones who said he wasn't going. So they said what he wanted them to say.
He doesn't need any protection. I mean, how did he get there? Probably in a Bombardier private jet that gives off 60 times more carbon than anybody else.
Yes, well, we don't know about that. The good thing was that he was there, and of course today is Remembrance Day for Diana, the day she died. So that he went there and he was with her side of the family, and I think that that's very good and might help him feel a bit better about things.
But neither of them are doing well out of it. William is not doing well out of it. Harry is not doing well out of it. The King is not doing well out of it. Meghan Markle's not doing well out of it. Why can't they just...
No, I don't think it's that easy. I think that they might do much worse if they were together again.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, the Reform UK conference in Birmingham has kicked off. It's in full swing. Nigel Farage made a barnstorming speech claiming that Reform UK would change Britain forever. But our political editor, Christopher Hope, is at the conference in Birmingham for us tonight, and he's at the party. The party. And he's outside it. There we go. Christopher, how is it? Is everyone still standing?
Just about, Patrick. Yeah, it's noisy here. Nigel Farage just was serenaded by his own supporters singing "You're Too Good to Be True," and it feels that almost summarises this entire conference. 4,000 people here at the NEC outside Birmingham. For me, it's a members' conference. I've been to so many of these over 3 decades. Normally, these conferences are in a city in Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, or even London, because that suits the corporates, it suits the lobbyists. But this is held in the middle of nowhere outside Birmingham, surrounded by massive car parks. But that suits members, that suits real people. And that energy, I think, Patrick, is what you're seeing come through at this Reform UK conference. You played out the interview I did earlier with Nigel Farage. He gives himself 8-1 on being Prime Minister in 2029, which is something. I mean, I would give it 100-1, but you know, he's ever the optimist, isn't he? He's got to get 321 more MPs than he's got to get majority in the House of Commons. He said, is it probable? No. Is it possible? Anything's possible. I sent you a WhatsApp, Patrick, in your phone. You'll see Farage early being sung to by members. You might enjoy it.
I've got it. So basically, I have got a video of Nigel Farage dancing on stage and being serenaded, which we're going to play in the next hour. So thank you for sending, in a way, thank you for sending that to me, Christopher. But just quickly, the atmosphere there generally now, people, you know, having fun, getting on it, singing and dancing. Is that what's going on?
That's right. We've got these. We've got a live band on stage now playing "I'm Still Standing." Lots of jokes about Lee Anderson. Of course, we're in the same place where the speeches were earlier. I mean, this is unlike anything I've been to. I went to all the Brexit Party's rallies. They were lower key, more like an evangelist rally, preaching to the converted. This feels a factor different to that. But whether the change can happen in the time which Farage has got being leader, because he is 60 and the clock is ticking. This is very much his party, his people, and how that party can find new leaders to take it on is a big challenge.
Christopher, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate you kind of placing us at the scene there this evening. So you go and enjoy yourself, and I want to see a video of you on stage dancing very shortly. Christopher Hope there, our political editor. Good lad. Right, now, a little bit earlier today, I actually spoke to Reform UK MP. He's called James McMurdoch, and there were a few policies, or things that had the whiff of a policy, being lobbed out at Reform today. So here's some of them, his response to some of them. Thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. I mean, Nigel Farage says that you can win the general election in 2029. Surely not.
No, I think we can. I think we can. If I can be here, then he can be there. No doubt about it.
How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? It's a massive ask. You've got 5 MPs at the moment.
I think we've done the hardest part already. We've got the 5 of us in. That was really, in the short space of time, the most significant thing in modern political history. So professionalising, building out the branches, getting the grassroots people, which are desperate for change, involved with us. The rest is easy.
One of the things that's really struck me about this is how desperate everybody on the left is for you to fail. So the BBC have already set up a fact-checking service to try to fact-check everything that's being said at this Reform conference so far. One of the big ones, it won't surprise you, one of the big ones is about this idea that we can't just take illegal migrants back to France. But I think Reform's policy is that you would just take them back to France, is that right? Can we do that? Would we do that under Reform?
Well, look, firstly, it's absolutely right that facts should be checked. We want people to get the truth, and that's regardless whose mouth it's coming out of. But look, people are drowning in the sea. You know, people are coming here illegally and then we're stuck with them, and that's not fair on them. It's a danger to their lives. It's not really fair on anyone. What we should be doing is keeping these people safe by keeping them in a safe country, which is France.
OK, all right. Look, I'm just going to ask you a couple of things that have been said so far. So, Anne Widdecombe was responding to the Labour decision to release prisoners early, some of whom, by the way, have already found their way back into prison, which I think everybody could have seen coming. But she decided that it might be quite a good idea to put prisoners into essentially holiday camps just as an overflow facility. Do you stand by that? Do you think that's something that would be good?
Look, we have to take care of the public. We should never, and this is no reference to Anne, this is just full stop, we should never lose our humanity. We do have to take care of people. That's one of the reasons Great Britain is one of the greatest countries in the world. We do have a responsibility to everyone, even if we don't like it, but we do have to come up with practical solutions, even if they're difficult.
And is that something that you think is a significant letdown at the moment, the safety of the British public? I mean, Nigel mentioned it in his speech earlier on as well. I mean, under the Conservatives, clearly for years there was, rampant knife crime, etc., was allowed to expand, the diminishing of our police force, and then under Labour now we've actually had some criminals, quite a lot of them, released early, haven't we? So is that an area for reform, do you think, about restoring law and order?
Of course. I mean, it's one of the most fundamental parts of a successful society, and we're failing in it. We cannot have machete-wielding maniacs running on our street. We're trying to raise our children here. It's not good enough. We're failing, so we have to do something about it.
I know that Lee Anderson was on the stage before. He gave a very impassioned speech. He ripped up a BBC licence fee notice. The crowd was going for all of that. He did say something, which I'm paraphrasing here, but it was essentially, if you don't really like Britain, then you can leave, OK? How do you feel about that? I think to me that speaks to a greater extent about integration and how multiculturalism maybe hasn't worked. So what would reform do about that, other than just saying to people, look, you know where the airport is?
Well, look, Lee has a way with words, and he puts things the way he does because, to an extent, he's absolutely right. If you don't like it here, you do not have to stay here. But we do have a British culture. It's a wonderful place to live. We've got to where we are partly, and well, in large part because of that culture. We should be protecting it, and we should be encouraging other people to be involved in it because of the benefits it offers. It's such a fair place to live. It's such a good place to live. It's such a nice part of the world we have created. We should protect it, and we should encourage other people, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what they believe, to be involved. It's good for all of us.
Just very lastly, James, grateful for your time. I've been seeing a lot of things from inside that conference hall. Things how you're only allowed to buy 4 alcoholic beverages at one time. I believe there's even a beer lanyard being sold so that you can put a beer on your lanyard and have it round your neck at all times if you like. Hey, it's all fun and games as far as I'm concerned, but it is currently, at the time I'm interviewing you, 5:45 in the afternoon. By the time I go out on air at about 9:45 this evening, how much fun do you think everybody's going to be having there?
They'll be having just the right amount.
Just the right amount.
Which is lots.
Very businesslike. Which is lots. All right. Look, James, you look after yourself. Thank you very much for your time today, and I hope that you continue to enjoy the conference. So you take care. See you soon. All right, well, I can confirm that they are having lots of fun, because when I come back, I'm going to be showing you a video of Nigel Farage dancing on stage. I've seen it. Now you have to see it, OK? But there is some other very, very serious news that's likely, because Keir Starmer has finally caved into pressure and announced that he will stop taking clothing freebies. But there's more. Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner initially declared their freebies as office support. It's also turned out in the last few minutes, David Lammy received £10,000 from a Saudi donor months before becoming Foreign Secretary, and so did the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. That story has just landed, according to reports in The Telegraph. I will bring you right up to date on the latest of Labour's donations scandal. Oh, and did they do an impact assessment on the winter fuel payments? Well, it turns out they did, but they're refusing to tell you what's in there. Why are they so allergic to being honest? Stay tuned.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow's weather patterns similar to today's. Much of the north dry. In the south, again, we need to watch out for some thunderstorms developing. We've seen a few today. Low pressure is heading up from the south. High pressure dominating to the north of Scotland, bringing, as I said, much of northern Britain a dry day today and a dry and a fine night. Having said that, the cloud is thick enough in the east for a little bit of drizzle here and there. In the south, we've seen some big downpours today. They are going to fade through this evening, but later in the night we could start to see a few more heavy showers coming in. It will be quite a mild night in the south, but with clear skies in parts of Scotland, temperatures will be well down into single digits. Again, though, Western Scotland having a cracking day, if you like, September sunshine. Meanwhile, in the south, we have another thunderstorm warning. Not everywhere in this large warning area will see downpours, but where they do occur, like today, they could cause some issues. Potentially some flooding. There's going to be lots of lightning and large hailstones as well. Eastern Scotland, northeast England likely to stay fairly glum. A bit of drizzle is possible along the coast and over the hills, but generally staying dry, and certainly plenty of sunshine once more in western Scotland. There will be some sunshine further south as well. The hit and miss nature of those thunderstorms, though, that's why we've got the warning in place. They could cause some disruption. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the road, so bear that in mind. Parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England, most susceptible, but some heavy showers across eastern England too. In the sunny spells, it'll feel quite warm, mid-20s possibly, 20 or 21 in western Scotland, but where it stays glum on the east coast, it will be cool, and that cloud is back again on Sunday, and the heavy showers across the south as well. We have another yellow Met Office warning in place for Sunday, covering large parts of England and Wales for wet weather. With the thunderstorms today and tomorrow, that extra rain could cause some further disruption. The warnings are available on the Met Office website.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next Great British Giveaway winner with a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash in your bank account. Imagine getting the winning phone call for that.
I've got some really good news for you. You've won £30,000.
£30,000 cash? Oh my God, I'm going to cry. That's brilliant news.
For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB08, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight, now Angela Rayner refuses to reveal all the details of the donation she's received, and
those not in receipt of pension credit or certain other means-tested benefits will no longer receive the winter fuel payment from this year onwards.
Labour did do an impact assessment on winter fuel payments, apparently, but now they're refusing to reveal that as well. And
our solution is a new brand that strikes out hate, replacing it with a simple bar of hope, reducing the visual power of the word hate.
it turns out that a Labour Party whip and other MPs are also members of a hardcore left-wing campaign group called Hope Not Hate. Should that be allowed? And in the last few minutes as well, it's emerged that David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, and Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, have reportedly taken £10,000 donations each from a Saudi backer. So I'll bring you more detail on that, reported in the Telegraph. Also tonight,
England in particular, in recent decades, our identity has started to fray.
Why are patriotic English people always accused of being racist? Is it time to hit back to that? On my panel, who will be picking their way through all the front pages tonight, is political consultant Suzanne Evans, columnist Patrick O'Flynn, and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbit. Oh, and they are very much having fun at the Reform Party conference. Get ready, Britain, here we go. How many Labour piggies have their snouts in the trough? Next.
At 10 o'clock, the latest headlines from the GB News Centre. The Prime Minister will no longer accept donations for clothing after the row over gifts. Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner have also announced they will take the same approach. The move comes as Labour seeks to move on from the widespread condemnation of the Prime Minister after he and his wife accepted gifts, including clothing, from prominent Labour donor and peer Lord Ali. Sir Keir has accepted around £39,000 from Lord Ali since December 2019. GB News has learned that Donald Trump has given Nigel Farage some key advice as the Reform leader bids to improve his party's chances at the next election. Mr Farage was speaking to our political editor, Christopher Hope, after his keynote speech at the party's annual conference in Birmingham. The Reform leader had spoken to Donald Trump in the days after a second assassination attempt on the former president and received a bit of political advice.
Your inspiration, is Donald Trump giving any advice?
I did speak to him on Monday after the second assassination attempt. He always encourages me.
What's his key bit of advice for you?
That'd be me.
And finally, thousands have gathered in the Netherlands to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Allied operation to take the bridge at Arnhem. British, Dutch and Polish paratroopers marched this evening to honour the forces who fought a week-long bloody battle to try to capture the bridge, but almost 2,000 Allied and Commonwealth troops were killed in the ultimately futile effort, which inspired the movie A Bridge Too Far. Yeah, that wasn't quite the "and finally." The Hezbollah terror group has suffered another major blow after one of its most senior commanders was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Ibrahim Akil is reported to have died when warplanes struck the building he was in earlier on Friday in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Security sources said he was killed alongside 10 other senior members of an elite Hezbollah unit as they were holding a meeting. Throughout the day, more than 140 rockets were fired by Hezbollah into northern Israel. The barrage started a number of fires when some rockets landed in open areas of the Israeli countryside, but there are no reported injuries. One of Mohammed al-Fayed's alleged victims has said the billionaire businessman was highly manipulative. A survivors' news conference heard the former Harrods owner described as a monster enabled by the system that pervaded the business. One lawyer said the case combined some of the most horrific elements of the Jimmy Savile, Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein abuse scandals. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for the moment. Buckle up for another rip-roaring hour with Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
The cloud of corruption over Downing Street has today been replaced by a fog of deceit. Angela Rayner was refusing to reveal exactly what type of donation she took. Then, in the last couple of hours or so, it's emerged that both the Labour Deputy Prime Minister and Chancellor Rachel Reeves declared clothing donations as, quote, office support. Reeves received £7,500 from a donor called Juliet Rosenfeld in 4 instalments from January 2023 to May 2024 that was used to pay for clothing, according to people with knowledge of the gifts. They were registered as donations to support the Shadow Chancellor's office. OK? Now the latest is that Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves have said that they won't take any more clothing donations. Well, they don't need to, do they? Because they've already been shopping. If you just spent $5 grand on clothes, you wouldn't need to spend any more either, would you? What about concert tickets, hospitality at the football, holidays to New York? Angela Rayner apparently spent 5 nights in New York at Lord Alley's luxury £2 million apartment. Now, she only declared £1,250 for that, reportedly. Does that add up to you? Maybe it does. It is reasonable to ask whether or not the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister and the Chancellor of the Exchequer have all tried to deceive us when it comes to their donations. But are they also deceiving the public in other areas? And just at this point, can I alert you to a story that has just landed in the Daily Telegraph, which is the headline, David Lammy's office took £10,000 in donations from a Saudi-supporting PR chief. They also report that Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, also took a £10,000 donation from a Saudi Arabia backing PR chief. Is that very aligned, do we think, with the Labour Party's values? I'm not sure. But potentially another area where people are looking to deceive the public is this £22 billion black hole. Now, Labour are now refusing to reveal what that black hole is, so they won't tell us exactly what it is. But today it's emerged that Labour have been given a £10 billion boost from the Bank of England. She's got £10 billion more to play with than she thought, OK? So this means, surely, that Rachel Reeves doesn't have to scrap the winter fuel payments for pensioners. But here's another thing that Labour, seemingly, want to hide from us. The result of their own impact assessment into scrapping that winter fuel payment. Now, we know that they did one whilst they were in opposition, and that predicted that around 4,000 elderly people might die. Well, Labour initially claimed that they hadn't done a new one. Starmer even said this: there isn't a report on my desk which somehow we're not showing, that I'm not showing. It's as simple as that. Well, then the Treasury responded to a Freedom of Information request and said that they have done a full internal policy impact assessment, but they're refusing to publish it. Now, one can only assume that the result of this impact assessment is absolutely awful, because otherwise it would be out there, surely. So they don't want to tell us about the donations. They don't want to tell us the truth about the economy, seemingly. They don't want to tell us about their impact assessments. Is this Labour government allergic to being honest? Let's get the thoughts from our panel this evening. I'm joined by political consultant Suzanne Evans. I also have columnist and political commentator Patrick O'Flynn and the former Labour Party advisor as well, Matthew Talbot. Suzanne, I'll start with you. When it comes to what we've just seen there about, you know, these donations, etc., and it appears that they might have been trying to be quite deceitful about that.
Patrick, we've had a Labour government for 11 weeks, and it's an absolute swamp, isn't it? There's no doubt about it. I mean, every day, some other piece of cronyism or a kind of abuse of power comes up. Really shocking now, this latest story about David Lammy. We have a foreign secretary who's taking money effectively for a foreign power. He needs to resign. I'm sorry, he needs to resign. And if the Tories were still in power and it was found out that the foreign secretary had done that, they'd be calling for resignations. This is an absolute swamp, everything they're doing. You know, there's a saying that politics is show business for ugly people. But politics isn't show business. This isn't about superstars, you know, taking the loan of a wardrobe from a designer to get publicity and so on and so forth. Politics should be about public service. It's about the greater good of your country. It's not about sponging. It's not about behaving like a superstar on the world stage, swanning around in designer clothes, going to football matches, corporate hospitality, behaving like you're filthy rich and living the life of Riley. I'm absolutely disgusted, and I can't believe in such a short space of time it's this bad.
I mean, trying to declare certain things as like office expenditure or things like that when it's clothes, and then coming out and saying, well, we promise that we won't take any more clothes. As I said before, but that's because you've already bought your wardrobe, isn't it? We don't need to have more clothes if we've just spent £5 on clothes, surely. So, you know, what about the other stuff? Should they release a statement saying we're not going to take donations for other things as well? Or is that a bit too far? People need to have the odd day out.
Well, look, I think what we're seeing here is that left-wing politicians in our country, particularly in the Labour Party, are addicted to the idea of their own virtue, right? So it's kind of, it's fine when we do it. They get on their high horse with the so-called evil Tories without once thinking how they look, because they just suppose that they're all virtuous and ethical. So, for instance, Keir Starmer said he thinks most people, in fact, at some point he said everyone would think of what he's doing with his Arsenal executive box and think fair dues. Well, no, they wouldn't.
No, they don't.
No, they wouldn't. And the free clothes. and you know, Keir Starmer is on the Prime Minister's salary. He's also got an enormous public sector pension pending as former Director of Public Prosecutions. He's also been a KC, or as it was, a QC for many years. He is a very wealthy man who will get more wealthy after his term of office is over, which is hopefully soon. They are sleazy. They're just as on the take as Boris Johnson, for instance, ever was, and yet they can't see themselves as other people.
Is it a problem? Is it a problem? Do you think, Matthew, that David Lammy and our Justice Minister as well, Shabana Mahmood, appeared to have taken £10,000 from a Saudi-supporting PR chief?
Politically, it can be seen as a problem. I think the problem with this, and I used to always be worried about people that wish to donate to MPs I worked for, because you don't know what they potentially have written or think. There's only so much you can look up. This guy, you know, supports... I mean, he's come out and he said that he's criticised the UK government's previous foreign policy interventions in the Middle East. I think that's probably fair enough as a broad thing. I think we do need to get a little bit of perspective on this. Now, I, you know, hold no candle to Keir Starmer. I've never really been a fan of Keir Starmer. You know, he wasn't my choice for leader. I don't think he's a particularly good leader. However, the idea that this cloud of cronyism or that it's a swamp all of a sudden, I think maybe we have some short memories when we think back to the fact that we had people in high office getting tanked up during the biggest public health crisis this country's seen in over 100 years. The fact that we had the Prime Minister's Special Advisor, all right, not on as much money,
isn't it?
not on more money than the Prime Minister at the time, but thought it was OK to drive 60 miles to test his eyes.
Is that why, just quickly on that, is that not maybe why, because of Keir Starmer and co.'s reaction to those things, is that not now why maybe they should quit over this stuff?
I don't think they should quit, but I remember thinking at the time this will come back and bite.
Yeah,
because ultimately people are going to want to try and influence politicians, and they will do that in many such ways, such as clothes, you know, donations. People want to gain influence. So I think, and I think other MPs apparently at the time said, you've taken this too far.
The problem for this now is it's every day. It's something every day.
It's rank hypocrisy, and stupidity as well. That's the other thing I can't understand about this, is are these people who've taken all these gifts so stupid that they've allowed themselves effectively to be blackmailed in that way, or at least open to allegations of blackmail? Because if you accept a gift like that, come on, you've got to think people are going to want something in return. It's stupidity, hypocrisy.
I think
can't believe how daft it is.
The Foreign Secretary taking donations from someone linked to a controversial foreign regime is very, very suspect indeed, and it should never, absolutely never have happened. And the other key thing is that all the freebie stuff has come out when they're doing this policy of removing the winter fuel payment from 90% of pensioners. Any pensioner who's got income of above about £11,500. These are a lot of very modestly stretched people. And Labour was supposed to reduce the cost of energy by £300 a year. It's going, the cap's going up £149, and Ed Miliband is planning all sorts of ludicrously expensive things that will send it up even further.
So just to recap, because I appreciate there's a lot, and there's a lot that's just just happened because we've had this Lammy and the Justice Minister Jemima Mahmood donations stuff that has landed in the last few minutes. OK, so today Angela Rayner initially was refusing to outline exactly what some of the donations were. Then it turned out that her and Rachel Reeves actually had listed donations for their office, had listed donations of clothes, as donations for their office. Then they came out about that. Then Keir Starmer, the Deputy Prime Minister, and the Chancellor have now said, sorry, OK, we won't take any more donations of clothing. Now it's turned out that the Foreign Secretary and the Justice Secretary have both taken 10 grand, it seems, anyway, according to the Daily Telegraph, from a Saudi-backing PR executive, which is quite astonishing. The other aspect of this, Matthew, is this report. Supposedly they've done an impact assessment on the winter fuel payment, right? And we know they did one in opposition, which suggested that around 4,000 people might die as a result of it. They said that they hadn't done one for this. Keir Starmer said he wasn't lying about that. Now it looks as though the Treasury did do one and they're refusing to reveal it. What do we think is going on here? Have they got one, do we think, and they're refusing to reveal it?
If the Treasury have said they have, I assume they have. The point is the Treasury, it answers as part of the civil service. They can't take part in the potential particular...
Should they reveal it then, do you think, or what do you reckon?
Probably not politically, because what it'll probably say is that your grandma and granddad may well freeze at Christmas time, and that's the whole point. I thought it's been... What I would urge, and I have said this since it's been announced, is Rachel Reeves should pull the ultimate rabbit out of a hat at the budget and surprise everybody at the dispatch 100%. Box and go, do you know what? We're a sensible, grown-up government. I have heard you all loud and clear, and we are not going to do this.
I agree with you.
And I think that would be fantastic. Politics would win a lot of plaudits back. And would be a good...
agree.
I think, it certainly would be better than not doing that now.
But I think people see through that. Labour do this all the time. I've certainly seen it in local government. They say, right, we're going to close the library. Oh, no, we're not going to close the library. We've saved the library. And that's how they try and spin it. But this has hit too many people too hard. Even if they backtrack now, people aren't going to forget this.
No. I think she could have got away with it if she'd set her means-tested limit, say... Every pensioner who pays tax at 40% or above, sorry, we can't afford to give you that at the moment. But to do it for the 90%, or so it's the so-called bottom decile, only that are spared is just horrendously
it's to not reveal things, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like to not reveal the results of an impact assessment, to try, it appears, to try to fudge exactly where that donated money went to and to try to wriggle out of telling us all a little bit about it. It is that perception of deception.
And I noted I think you quoted Starmer in your intro saying... no report is on my desk or something. It was a classic non-denial denial. That guy is shifty, and I think that's the number one impression most normal people will have got. It's shifty Starmer. You can't believe it.
I probably have to at this point say, I imagine Keir Starmer would deny that he is shifty.
I was going to say, I don't think he's shifty. I think he's a lawyer, and an argument could be made that actually it's the same thing. But the point is, I think genuinely, because he's so loyally, it's the lawyer within him, that he, as far as he's concerned, he hasn't broken any rules. And that's true. He's declared all this and by the rest of it. What he doesn't understand, clearly, or those in number 10 and those around him, don't realise the political optics of taking a little bit of money away from grandma and granddad that need it, but looking like to the Joe public that you're raking in 150 grand worth of gifts and presents.
But that's true. And again, it's a good point. Look, again, this is a vitally important thing to say. I know Keir Starmer appeared to be a little bit late declaring, I think, some of the stuff, but that is, in the grand scheme of things, all right, not the end of the world, but it's not ideal. I mean, he had a massive pop at the Tories for doing the same thing, so there is the element of hypocrisy there. It's not like the Labour Party, from what we know at the moment, have consistently been doing things like breaking loads of rules. I think it's more a case of, well, there's the moral question to this, isn't there? And there's the question of whether or not you should be doing this, and the question of hypocrisy as well. The thing that really is getting me, and we simply do not know an answer for this, we're going to have to move on now, unfortunately, but the thing we do not know the answer to about is what have these people been getting for their money? So when it's like Lord Ali, what have they been getting?
Well, we know he got a Downing Street pass, didn't he?
Yeah.
Would another equivalent peer with similar ability who hadn't given loads of money have magically landed himself a Downing Street pass?
This is the thing. So this is the follow-up, isn't it? What's this Saudi PR executive got for his money? Maybe nothing, but we don't know. Anyway, right, coming up, I've got all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages coming shortly. Oh, and they are having a ball at the Reform Party conference. More of that in just a few minutes. But first, it's emerged that several Labour MPs appear to be members of the so-called anti-fascist group Hope Not Hate. Now, that is what some people regard as being quite a militant organisation that accused Nigel Farage of using racism, Islamophobia, etc. to stir up division. They've done other things as well. Is it really appropriate for Labour MPs to sit on Hope Not Hate's board of trustees? I'm going to be joined by the former Tory mayoral candidate Susan Hall, who was hounded by the group on social media this year. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
This Monday, the king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
On Tuesday, the 3rd of September, at St Paul's Church in Wilton Place in London, a lucky few will sing highlights from Mozart's Don Giovanni in front of a paying audience with an orchestra and under the baton of Gary Matthewman, the conductor and artistic director of Brunswick Vocal Arts. Why is it important that young singers have this opportunity with an orchestra?
There's a gauntlet, if you like, that I think lots of young singers have to run between finishing the relative comfort of their conservatoire education and becoming firmly established as professional singers. Lots of the ones who show real verve and real promise and work really hard end up for a little bit too long being trapped in a kind of cycle of being the understudy, but some of them are ready to kind of go that extra mile and reach that next milestone. And we as a charity thought, well, what a lovely thing it would be to handpick some of these best young singers, give them intensive coaching on the role that they're going to perform, give them the chance to work with professional players for the first time, and crucially, have the thing professionally filmed and recorded. Because the first question all young singers are asked when they meet somebody influential now is, well, what's your website?
You have coached the singer, coaching the singer either towards a recital or towards their performance, their part in an opera. Tell me a little bit about that process.
It's a case of asking them questions which make them bring a character to life, so that when an audience member witnesses this person singing, they don't just think, oh, that's a pretty noise. They think, oh, there's something going on here that I recognise. And especially in a context like this, which is related, I think, to when people sing recitals. Say they sing 20 songs in that one evening, they've got to present 20 roles, 20 mini operatic roles, if you like. And we need to see the change in their bearing. We need to see the change in their approach to the text, as well as to the kind of the technical focus of their singing and how they produce sound.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. Very shortly, I will have all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you. But first, is it appropriate for Labour MPs to be linked to the self-styled anti-fascist organisation called Hope Not Hate, which claims to, quote, work tirelessly to expose and oppose far-right extremism? Now, two of the trustees of the charitable foundation are now reportedly Labour MPs. And it doesn't stop there. So the chairman of its trustee board is newly elected Labour MP Gurinder Singh Josan, and the government whip, Anna Turley, is both a director and a member of its Board of Trustees. Now, although Hope Not Hate claims to be non-partisan, they have been responsible for waging war on several prominent Tory and Reform UK politicians. Now, during the 2024 London mayoral elections, they distributed leaflets branding the Conservative candidate, Susan Hall, racist, and they also hounded her on social media. They've also accused Reform UK leader Nigel Farage of racism, xenophobia, sexism and Islamophobia to stir up division. I am joined now by the Conservative member of the London Assembly, Susan Hall. Susan, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much for coming on. I do have a little clip of some of the stuff that they did about you not so long ago. So we're going to play a little bit of that, and then I'll get you to talk off the back of it, if that's all right. So let's take that away.
Sure.
Do you regret your choice of words you made yesterday?
I regret people misunderstand what I say. That's what I regret.
Do you still think the 2020 election was stolen?
No, I think you're referring to an old tweet.
Are you a fan of Enoch Powell?
No, of course not.
But why? I don't understand. There was a picture of him, and you liked that tweet.
People misunderstand what I say. That's what I regret.
Yeah, so they really kind of went after you there. I am also at pains to say that a guy called Nick Lowles, who's described as the boss of Hope Not Hate, apologised for a false, quote, acid attack on Muslim woman tweet, which was suggested by some people might have gone some way to whipping up a bit of hatred and division during that period of the riots. So, Susan, do you feel as though it's appropriate for Labour MPs to sit on Hope Not Hate's Board of Trustees?
No, they should come out and tell everybody what they are. For years, they've had Labour people running this wretched, ghastly campaign. And I think some people that pay into it think that it is some form of charity, because I think they still do have charitable status. When we look at the way MPs are in danger these days, it does not help when you've got a company, if you like this, putting out tens of thousands of leaflets with my face on it, with racist written right across it. That really just causes more and more problems for politicians. And I don't feel safe when that sort of thing happens. And it happened all the way through the mayoralty. They're a damn disgrace. And one of the other Assembly members, the Assembly member for Brenton Harrow, he was handing out, he said, if you go to their website and type in Susan Hall, you'll see a picture of him on there. He was delivering leaflets. And I stopped him and I said, what the hell do you think you're doing? You know, bloody well I'm not racist. And he said, well, yes. I said, well, why are you handing out these blooming awful leaflets then? I said, that's Hope Not Hate. I said, are you a member of it? He said, oh, I associate myself with it. Of course they do. They use them to badmouth anybody on the right. And quite frankly, I know you're as fed up as I am. If you're not far left, as I'm quite happy to call them now, since everybody else is far right, if you're not that, you're clearly racist. That's all they say. I'm sick to death of it, quite frankly, Patrick. Sick to death of it.
I mean, there's been several incidents where same chap, Nick Lowles, who's not here to defend himself, but he is, I believe, the chief executive of Hope Not Hate. When we had that night where there was supposed to be 100 and odd far-right riots that never happened, and, you know, this was based on a list that was supposedly going around on Telegram groups, he came out and tweeted the next day that list was actually a hoax, which the implication is there that, well, was that put out there to try to make it look as though Britain saw off the far right, which, of course, was all the narrative there. He also did apologise, like I said, and was called incredibly irresponsible after putting out a tweet which said, reports are coming in of acid being thrown out of a car window at a Muslim woman in Middlesbrough. Absolutely horrendous. That was seen by more than 100,000 people. That turned out to, as we understand it, not be true. Now, he was accused of pouring petrol on the fire. And it's this kind of group, isn't it, that I wonder whether or not Labour politicians should really be associated with, Susan.
No, they shouldn't. But then you look at that tweet from Wes Streeting the day before the mayoral election, when he said that anybody voting for me was a white supremacist or had to be a white supremacist, Islamophobic or a racist. The left come out with comments like this all the time. And all they say is, oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. And everybody forgives them. And yet those of us that are centre-right, we get lambasted constantly with things from the left and being called racist all the time, which is very unpleasant. I call me lots of things, but do not call me racist.
Yeah, I mean, they do quite a lot of stuff, hope not hate. I mean, some people would say, Susan, that this is just part of democracy and that, you know, they disagree vehemently with what you have to say. They are, you know, fully signed up to various things like the Refugees Welcome Brigade, etc. And that this is the kind of thing that you might have to just put up with.
No, you see, I absolutely agree. We've all got different views, and we're all entitled to different views, Patrick. And GB News is fabulous. You get people with different thoughts. I mean, on your panel, you've got a gentleman there I don't know, but he's putting the other side to it. That's fine and that's fair. What isn't right is the minute the left don't like something you're saying, they refer to you as racist, and I'm sick to death of it.
Yeah, and I mean there are question marks as to whether or not it's possible for groups like Hope Not Hate to lean on corporations or lean on advertising executives or lean on commercial directors at places as well to say that, you know, if you do advertise with people, etc., who do not fit our brand values or our values as a group, then, you know, we can come out and make your life very difficult. Obviously, the likes of Hope Not Hate would probably deny that they lean on anyone to do that, but there's different ways of applying pressure, aren't there? And, you know, I do wonder whether or not Labour MP should really be associated with that. There is a question mark, of course, as well, Susan, just finally with you, about, you know, if there's a Labour whip who is in charge of telling Labour MPs, in part, how to vote on certain things, is associated with a group like Hope Not Hate, who have courted criticism from numerous different people as well for being, the perception being that maybe they are at times, you know, a little bit extreme in their views. Is that really a good idea to have someone behind the scenes trying to whip Labour MPs to vote a certain way in that regard?
Well, no, but I think what we need to be clear of, that people like Hope Not Hate should not pretend that they're completely independent. They're not. I mean, if you look on their website again, one of their first lines under me is, "We did it. Hope Not Hate has stopped Susan Hall becoming Mayor of London." Well, that's not an independent group. That is a group working on behalf of the Labour Party.
And you felt as though that put you at risk, at personal risk, because of some of the rhetoric?
Putting pictures of my face and delivering them with racist written across it, yes, I do. Don't you? I would never dream of doing that to any other politician. I think it's absolutely hateful. You know, we're not racists. And to be constantly called racist, and that's what's making more and more politicians stand back, because they're concerned about what they're going to be called. And the left wing do it all the time, and it's time we started fighting back.
All right. Well, Susan, look, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. It's Susan Hall there, just talking about her own experience as she sees it with that group Hope Not Hate. Now, we did approach Hope Not Hate directly. We also approached Gurinder Jossan, Antonia Bant, Sarah Owen and Anna Turley for comment on all of this. We did not hear back. I am just going to build a right of reply for them here because we haven't heard back from them. This is on their website. It says Hope Not Hate exists to challenge all kinds of extremism and build local communities. Our work focuses on the organised far right, the communities who are susceptible to them, and the issues and policies which give rise to them. Coming up, the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages have landed, and I'll bring them to you. Oh, and Nigel Farage, well, he's out and about having a bit of fun, isn't he? All right, I've got all that and much, much more coming for you very, very shortly. Stay tuned.
Monday, the king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow's weather patterns similar to today's. Much of the north dry. In the south, again, we need to watch out for some thunderstorms developing. We've seen a few today. Low pressure is heading up from the south. High pressure dominating to the north of Scotland, bringing, as I said, much of northern Britain a dry day today and a dry and a fine night. Having said that, the cloud is thick enough in the east for a little bit of drizzle here and there. In the south, we've seen some big downpours today. They are going to fade through this evening, but later in the night we could start to see a few more heavy showers coming in. It will be quite a mild night in the south, but with clear skies in parts of Scotland, temperatures will be well down into single digits. Again, though, western Scotland having a cracking day, if you like, September sunshine. Meanwhile, in the south, we have another thunderstorm warning. Not everywhere in this large warning area will see downpours, but where they do occur, like today, they could cause some issues. Potentially some flooding. There's going to be lots of lightning and large hailstones as well. Eastern Scotland, northeast England likely to stay fairly glum. A bit of drizzle is possible along the coast and over the hills, but generally staying dry, and certainly plenty of sunshine once more in western Scotland. There will be some sunshine further south as well. The hit and miss nature of those thunderstorms, though, that's why we've got the warning in place. They could cause some disruption. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the road, so bear that in mind. Parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England, most susceptible, but some heavy showers across eastern England too. In the sunny spells, it'll feel quite warm, mid-20s possibly, 20 or 21 in western Scotland, but where it stays glum on the east coast, it will be cool, and that cloud is back again on Sunday. And the heavy showers across the south as well. We have another yellow Met Office warning in place for Sunday, covering large parts of England and Wales for wet weather. With the thunderstorms today and tomorrow, that extra rain could cause some further disruption. The warnings are available on the Met Office website.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public.
Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the truth, available at gbnews.com.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
All right, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight, and it is an incredibly spicy set of front pages that I've got in front of me here, so strap yourselves in. We go with The Times, Labour U-turn on freebies, big picture of Angela Rayner there with the King. Starmer's top team will no longer accept donations. Fine, we know that. Let's move on to The Guardian. We won't take any more clothes as free gifts. PM. They've got a picture of Starmer's wife there, so The Guardian's decided to go off that line as well. The Daily Telegraph. I took free clothes too, admits the Chancellor. All right, so Starmer and top teams say no more gifts. But the one that does it for me is on the front of the Daily Mail. This is Starmer hit by calamity poll, and they claim to have a picture exclusive of Sue Gray, Starmer's chief of staff, having a bust-up with number 10 aide in a Downing Street garden. Downing Street chief of staff Sue Gray has a heated conversation with senior Whitehall Mandarin Michael Bork. Apparently, the Prime Minister's popularity has plunged 26 points amid this freebie row. Reeves and Rayner admit they got free clothes too. Now they're all forced to stop taking them. So it's a killer poll, apparently, for Sir Keir Starmer, and what appears to be a picture story of his chief of staff having a bust-up with a senior Whitehall Mandarin. I also say as well that another very senior Whitehall Mandarin, Simon Case, is we believe, resigning, or has resigned, I think. Well, supposedly over his relationship with Sue Gray, and some perceived leaks as well. Let's stick with this front page. I mean, this, to be honest with you, paints a picture of, well, carnage, really, behind the scenes.
Well, we don't know what they're saying, do we? But
No.
also, Sue Gray is at the centre of this nonsense. You know, the one rule about civil servants, really, is you should not be the story. But here she is, right in the thick of it. £170,000 a year. Apparently, she was told, well, look, you're earning more than the Prime Minister. Don't you think you should take a slight pay cut? So this story about you earning more than the Prime Minister doesn't arise. No, she said. So Sue Gray, I'm afraid, is partly responsible for this plunging popularity of the Labour Party too.
How concerned will he be about plunging popularity at this stage? You know, we're less than 100 days in.
I think they will be very concerned because, you know, they've talked the economy down, so that's gone wrong. Energy policy's gone wrong, two-tier Keir, three-gear Keir. It's hard to see where the good news is coming from. And I think this is really interesting because, you know, the Tories are still marooned on the mid-20s in the polls and having their navel-gazing. Labour, I think, is heading for similar territory. So this is where Nigel Farage and the path, you know, the home run path that could see him being a contender for Downing Street, it could work because it's always said first past the post will penalise a party like Reform. But if no other party is over 25% in the polls, if you score a 26%, suddenly first past the post will tumble you in lots and lots of seats. And I think things are set fair for Reform in the local elections, in any by-elections that come up. And I think, you know, Labour will find this a real shocking thing. Yes, they've got a huge majority. Yeah. They have several years. But once the skids are under you, it's not impossible to turn it around. Margaret Thatcher did in her first term, partly because of the Falklands.
It took a war,
and the economy turning round.
Yeah.
But if the economy doesn't turn round, I don't think Keir Starmer's likeable. And I think they are on the skids.
Does this paint a picture, Matthew, of what's going on behind the scenes here? I mean, it is just a still image. I imagine it says turn to page 6, so I imagine there's more on page 6 of the Daily Mail. So we'll have to wait and see first thing in the morning, won't we? However, you know, it does look as though there's a bit of a row going on. Yeah, and it's also the fact that this has got out there, isn't it? That's the other side to this. You know, there's a picture that's been allowed to have been taken in the Downing Street garden. It seems, you know, of a row between the chief of staff and a top civil servant. I mean, that's not good. If, you know, essentially a few weeks into office, is it?
I think I'm intrigued at how they've managed to get such a good shot, actually, from the Downing. You know, full props to the photographer. I think, you know, for me, this is a bit of a storm in a teacup. You're telling me people don't have arguments every day in number 10 and it isn't very tense at the top levels of government. Yeah. I don't think this is anything to be too worried about. I think the poll is very interesting because it's to suggest that Keir Starmer was ever popular. And I really don't say this to have a dig. I said for 2 years leading up to the election, I never felt that Labour were 20 points ahead. I always thought the Tories were 20 points behind. And I think we saw with turnout and the real thin layer of support that Labour got, it was a huge protest vote of, we do not like this 14-year unpopular incumbent Tory government anymore.
Yeah. But can he turn this round? You know, it is early days, and if I was doing Keir Starmer's spin for him, I would be saying, I've got all the bad decisions out the way early. You know, the expenses. We're new to government. I know we were in opposition for a while, but we're new to government. Gosh, it is a bit harder than we thought it is, actually, but we'll get to grips with it. You know, I'd be saying stuff like that, which, by the way, they're not saying, so, you know. But, you know, 26 points, they could, in a couple of months' time, do you see a way back for him from this?
There'll be peaks and troughs. There always is. Polls go up and down. I know that's a very generic politician thing to say. I don't think saying it's going to get worse did him any favours. And actually, the one thing that I think would really help, and where Labour may struggle, is Rachel Reeves's ironclad fiscal rules. How we are going to... I'm no economist, right? You know, but in a totally layman's terms, I don't understand how you cut your way to growth. And what we seem to be doing is putting forward an almost 2015-esque austerity-type small package without apparently taxing people, which, you know, I don't think they're being totally truthful on, and without borrowing to invest. I think you compare this to 1997. Tony Blair was very fortunate in that he inherited quite a healthy economy. It just sort of started to turn a corner in 1997.
That budget is...
We don't have that.
Well, that budget, I mean, we could be seeing all sorts of headlines after that budget in October.
You know, those consumer confidence statistics today, people are terrified about what is coming in this budget. I'm worried sick about it. Everyone I speak to is worried sick about it, and that's why nobody's shopping, nobody's buying, nobody's investing. Everything's a disaster. She is talking the economy down. I mean, no, you don't tax your way to growth. Either. That's the other thing. And if people think they're not going to have any money in their pockets left at the end of every month, they are not going to be boosting the economy. There will be no growth.
Exactly. All right. Look, when I come back, it's a bit pressed for time. We're going to have the next tranche of newspapers to get ourselves stuck into. But I'm also going to be showing you, all right, Nigel Farage has been having a great time at the Reform Conference. There's a video of that coming your way. But isn't this also just a little bit sickening?
Hello, President Paris now.
Oh, whoopsie, just got it right. A little mistake on my part. I'll see you in a few minutes.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I've got a question for you here, Mr. Motivator. Each time I will try and do a Couch to 5K, and I start, and then it stops, and then I'll have another go. It's baby steps, though, for most of us, isn't it? You've got to start slow, because I also see people go out and run, do that, and then do too much, and they get completely exhausted and think, I can't do this anymore. So what is it? You have to start slowly, right? Is that fair?
Well, with everything that you do need to start slowly. But what's more important than that? You need to identify an activity that suits you. Now, the thing is, you may want to do Couch to 5K, but let's say you have a preponderance for swimming. Maybe swimming is what you really like, or dancing is what you like. You find the activity that suits you. And I have to say, you'll never see a happy jogger. They're happy afterwards. They have enjoyed the experience, but they're never happy whilst doing it. But you must start with everything.
Have you ever been out of shape, though? Because whilst I find you really inspiring, I feel as though you've always been in good nick, and therefore it's kind of come easy to you. Whereas I think, you know, there are plenty of people who have a tendency to put on weight. I mean, I can look at chocolate and I feel like I put on weight. You know, and it's a slog, especially if you've taken your foot off the gas for a while. Getting back into it's brutal. What do you know about that?
Well, let me just say this to you, that in the early days, and I can go back, don't forget 71 years, our activity level was much higher. But this is something that's really just happened in the last 30 years. So those 30 years, we have changed. We now spend more time in front of the computer. We spend more time sitting down. So that's why we need gyms, and we need to get up. Now, gyms don't suit everybody. And that's why I do free classes. Free club, you can join. Everyone can get access to movement in their home. But you have got to make that first step.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now I've got some more front pages for you. Let's rattle through these. So the Daily Express, heartless, 86% of poorest pensioners will lose fuel help. That is their crusade to try to bring back the winter fuel payments for pensioners. Let's go to the Sun. Fayed was like Savile, Epstein and Weinstein. The rapist preyed on hundreds. This is the latest revelation, really, about Al Fayed at Harrods. The Mirror have also got the same story, really. Al Fayed was a monster. Lawyers compare Harrods boss to Savile and Epstein. Mohammed Al Fayed has been compared to some of Britain's vilest sex offenders. Let's go to the Eye now. A very different story on the front of the Eye. EU reveals the price of Starmer's softer Brexit. New migration deal for under 30s in Europe and UK. Young people aged 18 to 30 should get 4-year visas, allowing them to live in the UK in return for a softer Brexit deal. Brussels will tell the Labour government. That's printed as fact on the front of the Eye. So that, you know, could be potentially massive if indeed it does come to fruition. I just thought what I'd do is I'd bring you a couple of maybe slightly lighter clips just to round off the show, though. The Lovies are at it again, aren't they? Oprah Winfrey hosted the Unite America virtual rally with Kamala Harris, which featured a bunch of Hollywood big names endorsing the Democrat presidential candidate, including Meryl Streep. But this was, I think, I hope you can all agree, a bit of an insufferable moment.
Hello, President Harris. Oh.
Yeah.
47 days.
47 days, yes.
But I think she might have made a bit of a mistake there, where she's gone 47 days, only in 47 days. Well, you know, didn't Hillary Clinton tweet out a picture, something like, this little girl didn't know she was going to be president one day? Yeah. Was she ever president? No, didn't happen. Trump did for her. But I just want to bring us this one as well, because I've been telling you about this. Reform are currently having quite a good time, literally right now as we speak. They had beer lanyards, so you could literally put your pint in a lanyard and carry it around your own neck at that conference. I know, right?
It's a bit male macho.
Anyway, now the party's in full swing.
You're just too good to be true. Nigel Wayne has taken the eyes of
in the air there. Look He's hailed them. Nigel Farage has hailed them. Look at that. Oh, my gosh. I mean, it does look as though they're having a good time. Patrick, is this something that they should be, is this the party that's having the most fun at the moment?
Yes, high energy.
Does it matter?
Having fun. It just looks high energy. It looks like they've got a story to tell and they're on the up, so all good.
Farage always knew how to party, didn't he?
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah. Someone who's deprived a few proper lunches there, I think, with it. But is that, when you see that, I suppose, Matthew, from a Labour perspective, is that... Because if Labour are maybe moving slightly away from some of their working class roots, it could be argued. It could also be argued that maybe Reform might sweep some of that up.
I think there's totally a target for them. And I've said before, I think Reform are our biggest threat at the moment. I think the Tories are flailing around like a fish out of water, trying to decide which way they want to go. I'll be intrigued. I'm heading up to Liverpool tomorrow. I will be intrigued how it will go. I actually think, even before, Nigel having a lot of fun, I think it'll be boring because when you're in power, there's only so much you can trail because you're not going to be announcing policies for an election or, lots of potentially exciting stuff. Starmer, I think, should make a couple of jokes, though, about this stuff that's gone on this week in his speech and try and smooth it over a bit.
All right, we will wait and see. It's time to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Now, we're going to be quite snappy with this. So, Suzanne, I'll start with your Greatest Britain, please.
So it's the Free Speech Union for standing up for people who face the threat of being cancelled or branded criminals. People who before now didn't have a voice or much legal representation unless they were very rich. They've been backing a friend of mine recently and I'm very grateful for them.
Good stuff. OK, Patrick.
Well, I'd like to nominate Richard Tice because of his willingness to stand aside for Nigel's quite capricious return to the front line and seeing the bigger picture. And I think their conference today kind of vindicates what he did. So the supporting guy being the Greatest Britain on this occasion.
All right, good start from both of you there. Go on, then.
I'm doing Great Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham. He's going to be the first mayor. He's asking Rachel Reeves for some money to set up a Housing First programme, the first in the UK, which has been trialled and used in Finland and has all but eradicated homelessness. So I hope Rachel Reeves gives him the money in the budget.
Well, there we go. Brilliant stuff. OK, I have gone for the Free Speech Union for today. I think we could have gone for any of those, though, so good choices. Who's the Union Jackass for you, please?
It's the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, for being a bad Chancellor, frankly. National debt up to 100% of GDP. Borrowing has spiralled out of control, the third highest borrowing in a month on record. All the massive tax hikes she's planning, completely destroying consumer confidence. Disastrous.
OK, Patrick?
Well, someone who got my goat was Tom Tugendhat, the Tory leadership contender, who said that because he was top of a poll as who was the most popular Tory with Liberal Democrats, that means he's the right man to win back 60 Liberal Democrat seats that they got off the Tories. Well, in fact, the reason the Tories lost 60 seats to the Liberal Democrats was because they lost a load of voters to Reform and a load of others to abstain. And it was because they weren't Tory enough. They won't win them back just by having a Liberal Democrat lookalike.
Yeah, exactly. Go on then, Matthew.
Mine is Robert Jenrick for failing for 8.5 minutes in a toe-curling interview to describe what English identity really is. If you're going to come out with something, at least back it up with something. We all know it's last-minute England goals and mobility scooters outside Wetherspoons and having a great time with your mates and a great British curry, surely.
Don't say we don't get balance on this show. Fantastic. So today's winner of the Union Jackass is Rachel Reeves. So there we go. OK, all right. Well, look, thank you very much, everybody. I've enjoyed it. And I would just like to say thank you to everybody as well who's been watching and who's been listening and who's been donating as well. justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. Let's save the elderly.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow's weather patterns similar to today's. Much of the north dry. In the south, again, we need to watch out for some thunderstorms developing. We've seen a few today. Low pressure is heading up from the south. High pressure dominating to the north of Scotland, bringing, as I said, much of northern Britain a dry day today and a dry and a fine night. Having said that, the cloud is thick enough in the east for a little bit of drizzle here and there. In the south, we've seen some big downpours today. They They are going to fade through this evening, but later in the night we could start to see a few more heavy showers coming in. It will be quite a mild night in the south, but with clear skies in parts of Scotland, temperatures will be well down into single digits. Again, though, western Scotland having a cracking day, if you like, September sunshine. Meanwhile, in the south, we have another thunderstorm warning. Not everywhere in this large warning area will see downpours, but where they do occur, like today, they could cause some issues. Potentially some flooding. There's going to be lots of lightning and large hailstones as well. Eastern Scotland, northeast England, likely to stay fairly glum. A bit of drizzle is possible along the coast and over the hills, but generally staying dry, and certainly plenty of sunshine once more in western Scotland. There will be some sunshine further south as well. The hit and miss nature of those thunderstorms, though, that's why we've got the warning in place. They could cause some disruption. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the road, so bear that in mind. Parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England, most susceptible, but some heavy showers across eastern England too. In the sunny spells, it'll feel quite warm, mid-20s possibly, 20 or 21 in western Scotland, but where it stays glum on the east coast, it will be cool, and that cloud is back again on Sunday, and the heavy showers across